Welcome! Do you want to learn English in a fun and easy way? In this video, we teach English using narrated, animated stories. Here is how it works. On the left, watch the beautiful animations. They are designed to help you understand and enjoy the story. On the right, you can read along as you listen to the narrator. When we reach a difficult word, don't worry. A box will appear at the bottom with a simple definition and an example to help you learn. Let's get started.
Imagine a day when important newspapers print stories that are not true. Big companies tell you about products that do not exist. Even presidents might joke about serious things. And everyone, instead of getting angry, just laughs. This is April Fool's Day. It is like a very old, worldwide joke that everyone knows about. Every year on April 1st, many people around the world play tricks. Friends put paper fish on each other's backs. Children try to fool their parents. Millions of people try to trick others, but it is all done in fun. This special day is called April Fool's Day, or sometimes All Fool's Day. It is a strange holiday. It has no clear start date. No church or religion made it special. No government law says we must celebrate it. It is just a day for fun and harmless lies. How did this day begin? No one really knows for sure. Even people who study history cannot agree on its true beginnings. This mystery is part of what makes April Fool's Day so interesting. What we do know is that April 1st has been a day for tricks and silly fun for hundreds of years. Different countries have different ways to celebrate. The jokes can be small, like in a schoolyard, or very big, like hoaxes on television. But the main idea is always the same. On this one day, people have permission to play jokes. This book will take you on a journey to find out more. We will go back in time, from the old streets of ancient Rome to the funny pranks we see today on the internet. We will visit kings in France and listen to funny shows on the BBC. We will discover how this day of gentle deception has grown and changed. But to truly understand this long, funny story, we must first look very far back. We need to go to a time even before our modern calendar existed. This will help us see how old the idea of playing tricks, especially in spring, truly is. How could such a simple act of fooling others survive for so many centuries without anyone really knowing its start? It's a peculiar question with a very long answer, full of unexpected twists and turns. Prepare to discover the world's oldest and most mysterious global inside joke. 2. The springtime trick. Why do people enjoy playing tricks on each other just as the seasons change? This question takes us back to very old times, looking at the roots of April Fool's Day. People in ancient times celebrated spring with many festivals that included jokes and fun. One such festival was Hilaria, celebrated in ancient Rome. It happened at the end of March. People wore disguises and made fun of other citizens, even important leaders. For a short time, the usual rules of society were put aside. Rich and poor people were laughed at together. It was like a big masked party where people could be silly and free. This time of play was perhaps inspired by the springtime weather itself. Spring is often unpredictable. One day it is sunny and warm, the next day it can be cold and rainy.
Flowers might bloom early, then get hurt by a late frost. Nature seems to play tricks on us with its sudden changes. Ancient people may have copied this playful spirit of Mother Nature by playing their own tricks on friends and neighbors. Other old festivals also showed this link between spring and mischief. In ancient Persia, people celebrated Sizdah Bedar on April 1st or 2nd. This day involved outdoor picnics and light-hearted jokes connected to their new year. This tradition might be over 2,000 years old, making it one of the very oldest customs involving pranks. The Hindu festival of Holi, celebrated in late February or early March, also featured fun, bright colors, and playful deception. These ancient ways of celebrating spring show that humans have always liked to trick each other when the world feels new and full of surprises. These festivals remind us of our modern pranks today. However, many historians say that the real start of April Fool's Day comes from one important event in France. But could that famous French story itself be a trick? 3. The calendar change. A simple change in a piece of paper, the calendar, could have created a worldwide day of jokes. In the 16th century, France decided to change its calendar system. Before this time, France, like many other places, used the Julian calendar. A special thing about the Julian calendar was that the new year often started around April 1.
This date matched the spring equinox, when spring truly began. People celebrated with gifts and visits to friends, just like we celebrate New Year's Day now. However, in 1582, France adopted the Gregorian calendar. This new calendar was part of a larger change recommended by the Council of Trent. A key difference with the Gregorian calendar was that it moved the start of the new year to January 1. This was a very important change. But in the 1500s, news traveled very slowly, especially to towns far from big cities like Paris. Many people in the countryside simply did not hear about the new January 1 start date. They continued their old traditions, celebrating the new year in spring, around April 1, as they had always done. People who knew about the new calendar saw these older celebrations as silly. They began to play jokes and make fun of those who were still celebrating the wrong new year. A very popular prank was to secretly stick a paper fish onto someone's back. These people were then called poissons d'avril in French, which means April fish. This name came from the idea of a young, foolish fish that is easy to catch. It symbolized a gullible person who didn't know they were being tricked. This calendar change theory has been widely told as the origin of April Fool's Day. It creates a clear and easy story. However, when historians look deeper into the historical records, the story becomes more complicated.
King Charles IX of France actually issued a rule, the Edict of Roussillon, in 1564. This rule already set the new year to January 1. This was 2 full decades before the larger Gregorian reform in 1582. So many French people had already moved their New Year celebration before the official calendar change. More importantly, there are no clear accounts from the 16th century that directly link the calendar change to people being mocked for April Fool's pranks. There are no old letters, court papers, or newspaper stories from that time describing confused villagers and April fish pranks. The connection between the calendar change and April Fool's Day seems to have been made up much later by people trying to explain the holiday. In fact, a French poet named Éloy de Mervel mentioned Poisson d'Avril as early as 1508, which is even before King Charles IX's decree.
This suggests that the tradition of the April fish might be older than any calendar reform and not a result of it. The image of the fish is still important. In early April, the sun enters the astrological sign of Pisces, which is the fish. Young fish in spring rivers were seen as easy to catch because they were naive and inexperienced. To call someone an April fish was to call them easily tricked. So just as this calendar theory seems to perfectly solve the mystery of April Fool's Day, we uncover a surprising twist. The dates and the historical documents do not match up perfectly. Someone either made a big mistake when writing history, or they played a brilliant trick on modern historians. This leaves us with a real historical puzzle. 4. The Old English Joke. After the puzzle of the calendar change in France, the tradition of tricks moved quietly across Europe. How did this day of jokes reach England? One early idea comes from a very old English poem. Geoffrey Chaucer, a very important English writer, wrote the Canterbury Tales around the year 1390. In one of his stories, called The Nun's Priest's Tale, there is a proud rooster named Chanticleer and a clever fox. They both try to trick each other. The poem says these tricks happened 32 days after the beginning of March. If we count these days, it would be April 1. However, this date is not completely sure. Some experts believe that a person copying the poem by hand a long time ago made a spelling error. They think Chaucer actually meant 32 days after March was gone, which would mean May 2nd. This small ambiguity makes it difficult for historians to say for certain if this is truly the first mention of April Fool's Day in English writing. Interestingly, William Shakespeare, another very famous English writer who lived much later, never wrote about April Fool's Day. This suggests that it was not yet a common or well-known holiday in England during his time. The first clear written mention of April Fool's Day in England appeared much later, in 1686. A writer named John Aubrey noted it in his book. He called it Fool's Holy Day and said it was observed on April 1. Aubrey also wrote that it was celebrated, quote, in Germany everywhere, showing that this tradition of foolishness had already spread widely across both countries. A well-known prank from this period happened in London. On April 1, 1698, many people were tricked into going to the Tower of London. They were told they could see the lions washed. This was a famous ruse or a trick used to deceive unsuspecting tourists and Londoners. People were given printed tickets, sometimes even advertising the chance to watch this rare event of lion bathing at the famous fortress. Hundreds of people would show up, full of anticipation and excitement, only to be told that there were no lions to wash, no bath, and no special event at all. The people who played the trick must have enjoyed their cleverness greatly. This reoccurring prank played on tourists at the Tower of London gives us a real picture of how April Fool's Day worked at the end of the 17th century. The mystery for historians is how these jokes and traditions spread across Europe without any clear single origin. People in different countries started to celebrate April 1 with various tricks, but no one seemed to have a clear record of exactly why or how it all began. It was like a shared secret, a day for playful mischief that slowly grew in popularity. As this strange, unofficial holiday became more and more common across the continent, a brand new invention was just about to appear. This new technology would make these pranks much bigger, able to reach many more people, and sometimes even more risky to the general public. It would completely change how April Fool's Day was celebrated for years to come. 5. Newspapers tell lies. What happens when people who should tell the truth decide to print lies for fun? In the 1700s, April Fool's Day became very popular. Yet even then, nobody knew where it started. Writers in the 18th century asked about its origins, but the custom was already old and widespread across Northern Europe. It was a puzzle how it had spread so far without clear records. In Scotland, April Fool's Day turned into a 2-day event. The first day was called Hunting the Gowk. Gowk is an old word for a cuckoo bird, which means fool. People were sent on silly errands. Someone would get a sealed letter and take it to a friend. The friend would read the letter, which only said, "Send the gowk another mile," and send the person to someone else. This made the gowk travel all day for no real reason.
The next day was Taily Day, where people played jokes on others' backs, like pinning fake tails or kick-me signs. In Britain, a strange rule appeared. Pranks were only okay until noon. If you tried to trick someone after midday, you became the April Fool yourself. People also loved fool's errands. They would send someone to a bookshop for a book called History of Eve's Grandmother, or to a chemist for pigeon's milk. These items did not exist, and the joke was that the victim would walk around asking for them. By the 1800s, April Fool's Day crossed to America. Here, print media made pranks bigger. Pranksters printed fake tickets for events that never happened. Thousands of people would show up, only to learn they were tricked. This was similar to an old prank at the Tower of London, where people were told they could see lions being washed. In the early 1900s, newspapers began to play even bigger pranks. On April 1, 1905, a German newspaper, Berliner Tageblatt, printed a story. It said thieves had dug a tunnel under the U.S. Treasury and stolen $268 million in gold and silver. This fictional story was copied by newspapers everywhere. Many people believed it before they found out it was a lie. This showed how powerful newspapers were. They could make a hoax spread quickly and fool many. Paper tickets and newspaper stories were strong tools for pranks, but they were nothing compared to what came next.
In the 20th century, a new kind of technology would make pranks bigger and more amazing. A single broadcast was soon going to make a whole nation believe something completely impossible. 6. Jokes on the television. Television changed how people played April Fool's jokes forever. How did a trusted channel like the BBC make people believe spaghetti grew on trees? This happened on April 1, 1957. The British Broadcasting Corporation, BBC, showed a news story on its Panorama program. It said that farmers in Switzerland were picking spaghetti from trees. They had a good harvest because of a mild winter and no spaghetti weevils. A weevil is a small insect that eats plants. Eradication of these bugs helped the trees grow more spaghetti. The 3-minute report showed people pulling long strands of pasta from branches. Richard Dimbleby, a very respected newsman, narrated the story. His voice made the prank seem very real. The mix of a trusted voice and a real-looking film from the BBC was irresistible. Many viewers thought the story was true. They called the BBC to ask how to grow their own spaghetti trees. The BBC told them, place a sprig of spaghetti in a tin of tomato sauce and hope for the best. This joke was very clever. In 1957, many British people did not eat spaghetti often. The idea of it growing on trees was not completely impossible for them to believe. The joke was perfectly calibrated to fool many people, but still be funny when the truth came out.
This audacious prank set a new standard for April Fool's hoaxes. The BBC tried another trick in 1965. They talked about smell-o-vision. This was a fake technology that let people smell things through their TV screen. After a demonstration, many callers said they smelled onions or coffee. Their minds made them believe it. It showed how powerful the idea of a prank can be. Swedish television, SVT, also played a smart joke in 1962. SVT was the only channel in Sweden, and it showed programs in black and white. On April 1st, they announced a new way to see color TV. Viewers just needed to pull a nylon stocking over their screen. This was not true, of course. A stocking cannot change a TV to color. But thousands of people tried it. They believed the official TV station. This prank showed the power of a trusted source to make people believe something silly. The sophistication of these hoaxes was growing. Television gave people a new, magical way to fool millions at the same time. The scale of these jokes was huge. Seeing this power, big, rich businesses started to think about using April Fool's Day for their own plans. They realized they could use this holiday to get attention for their companies. The world's biggest companies were about to join the fun. 7. Big companies join the fun. Big companies saw how powerful April Fool's Day could be. In 1996, Taco Bell made a big splash.
They ran newspaper ads saying they bought the Liberty Bell and renamed it the Taco Liberty Bell. This historic bell is a priceless symbol of American freedom. Many people felt great outrage and called both the company and the government. It was a huge provocation, but later everyone learned it was just a prank. This joke showed companies that April Fool's Day could be a way to advertise. 2 years later, in 1998, Burger King also joined in. They advertised a left-handed Whopper. It was a burger designed for left-handed people with the ingredients turned around. Thousands of customers asked for this special burger. The joke was gentle, but it showed how easily people could believe something if it was presented with confidence. Even earlier, in 1985, Sports Illustrated magazine tricked many readers. A famous writer, George Plimpton, wrote about a new baseball pitcher, Sid Finch. He supposedly threw balls at 168 miles per hour. The story had many believable details, and readers were fooled by this clever piece of writing. In 1992, NPR, a radio station, also caused a stir. They had an impersonator pretend to be Richard Nixon, saying he would run for president again. Many listeners were very angry because they thought it was true. With the new century, Google became the biggest player in April Fool's pranks. From 2000, Google made yearly announcements that seemed real but were jokes. In 2005, they announced Google Gulp, a drink to make you smarter. In 2013, they introduced Google Nose for smelling things online. They even hid the character Waldo on Google Maps in 2018. Google's pranks were often clever and sometimes even prophetic. In 2014, Google created a Pokemon game for Google Maps. Users could find and catch Pokemon on their phones. It was a joke, but 2 years later, This idea became the hugely popular game Pokémon Go. Sometimes Google made real things that people thought were jokes. In 2004, they launched Gmail. It offered a very ambitious amount of storage for email. Many thought it was too good to be true and must be an April Fool's joke, but it was real. The internet changed pranks forever. A joke could go around the world in seconds, but this also made pranks risky. With so much fake news online, the line between a funny joke and harmful misinformation became thin. Will this old tradition survive, or has the joke gone too far in the digital age? 8. Why we love to laugh. After centuries of strange stories, funny lies, and big company tricks, why do people still love April Fool's Day? Why do we let this day of deception continue year after year? This holiday has a long, mysterious, and very funny past. We have looked at how it spread from ancient Roman times to modern websites, but even now we do not know its true beginning. There is no clear founder, no religious reason, and no government law to make it happen. This mystery itself is one of the most interesting things about April Fool's Day.
One big reason we love this day is that laughing together helps people connect. When someone plays a trick and then shows it was a joke, both people share a special moment. The person who was fooled realizes they were wrong, laughs, and the small moment of vulnerability can actually make friendships stronger. It is like a small practice for life, where we often find out that things are not what we first thought. April Fool's Day also lets us act differently for a short time. Like old festivals, it gives us permission to put normal rules aside. Serious people can be made to look silly. The powerful can be made fun of. For just one day, the world works a little differently, helping us cope with a confusing and unpredictable world. There is also the simple joy of a good prank. It's fun to plan a clever trick, thinking about how plausible it is, and then to see someone's face as they figure out the joke. The shared laughter after the reveal builds a bond between the prankster and the person who was fooled. It gives us a break from everyday serious life. So, the biggest trick of all is that we still do not know how April Fool's Day truly started. Was it from old Roman parties, French calendar changes, a Scottish joke about cuckoos, or something else entirely? Historians still cannot agree. But what we do know is that this day taps into something deep inside us: the joy of play, the fun of surprise, and the simple pleasure of making each other laugh. This tradition has lasted hundreds of years, adapting from books to radio to television and the internet. It continues not because of kings or laws, but because ordinary people enjoy it. What is your favorite April Fool's Day prank you have ever heard or played?
Hey there! Just a second before you go. If you learned something new today, please give this video a like, write your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to the channel. It only takes a second, and it really, really helps to create even better English videos for you. Your support means the world.